this government will have a laser-like focus on economic growth.
That's why government has established a National Policy Office to drive its economic growth agenda. This new office will augment the work of the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Economic Growth Council, as well as the Jamaica House Fellowship. You'll hear more about Prime Minister Andrew Holness's plans in today's edition of Jamaica Magazine. Welcome.
Yo, if I win, me look at work and can't get one.
You want to look work?
Yeah, but it's hard to pick up something since we get locked up for ganja.
So, you never know, so you could get a record clear?
Huh?
Yeah. I was arrested for ganja too, you know.
You?
Yeah. I heard on the news that I could expunge my record. I went in and I fly free. But I realized that the mathematically do it.
I never know that.
Yeah. But the thing is that it has to be a minor ganja offense. Like having 2 ounces or less.
Yeah, man, I'm going to apply for mine then, man.
Automatic expungement is available for past convictions for smoking ganja, possession of pipes or other utensils, and for the possession of ganja where the fine is no more than $1,000. To apply for a police certificate, you may visit one of the following locations: the Criminal Records Office, 34 Duke Street, Kingston; the Summit Police Station in St. James; Maypen Police Station in Clarendon; Area 2 Police Headquarters in St. Mary; and Pompano Bay Police Station in St. Mary.
Good day, I'm Tamara McHale and this is your GIS News for Monday, May 30. Government is pursuing negotiation with a major investor to revitalize aspects of the country's rail service at a cost of $270 million US. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the disclosure during his budget presentation last week. The project is expected to employ thousands of persons and stimulate the economies of the communities through which the rail service will operate.
The Minister of Transportation, he knows of the urgency of this one.
The revitalization will include an overhaul of 58 kilometers of the Montego Bay to Appleton leg of the rail service at a cost of $85.5 million US. 73 kilometers of the Spanish Town to Yuaton and the Spanish Town to Clarendon Park legs of the rail system will also be upgraded at a combined cost of $7.2 million US. Government also intends to overhaul 55 kilometers of the Appleton to Clarendon Park leg at a cost of $80.6 million US and revamp 21 kilometers of the Spanish Town to Kingston leg of the railway system at a cost of $38.9 million US. The Bank of Jamaica is forecasting that the country's current account deficit this fiscal year will be low.
This experience of 2 consecutive years of low, sustainable current account deficits will be the first we have had in nearly 20 years. And only the second time since 1963 that Jamaica will have had a sustained period of balance in the external current account.
The BOJ governor was speaking during the bank's quarterly report last week. He said the estimated current account deficit of 2.2% of GDP for fiscal year 2015-2016 was more than covered by the inflows of foreign direct investment, which was estimated at 5.8% of GDP. The BOJ expects the current account deficit for this fiscal year to remain within the range of 2 to 3%. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says his administration will be exploring opportunities to further incorporate the capabilities and capacities of the Jamaica Defence Force in national development. While lauding the JDF as a national asset with some of the island's best human capital, Mr. Holness says it will be leveraged for greater earning.
Government intends to spend some time on making sure that the military is integrated in what we're doing. They have capacities that can help us to tackle many of the socio-economic issues, not just limited to crime, but specifically with crime, but also with training. That's very important. And as you can see here, with their amazing engineering capabilities, a lot can be done if it is leveraged appropriately.
The Prime Minister was speaking during a tour of JDF facilities at Up Park Camp, Tucannon Park and Port Royal last week. Meanwhile, the Engineer Regiment of the Jamaica Defense Force says it is far advanced in its plans for the upcoming hurricane season.
We go through our hurricane practices and other disaster-related preparedness practices to make sure that we all understand, number one, what our roles are, to see what the deficiencies are, to make sure that we have the right equipment in place, to look at how we are dispersed across the island and how we will support the national effort.
Commanding Officer Lieutenant Colonel Martin Rickman was speaking with the JIS News following Prime Minister Andrew Holness's tour. For several years, the JDF has been assisting the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management with logistics planning and other activities. Local Government and Community Development Minister Desmond McKenzie has ordered an immediate audit of the Hanover Parish Council. While addressing a special meeting of the council last Thursday, he revealed that the ministry had taken full control of all documents at the local authority. He said a team of senior officials from the ministry, including the Chief Internal Auditor and Procurement Officer, would be probing allegations of irregularity cited in a report from the Office of the Contractor General last year. The OCG released another report a few weeks ago charging that 2 councillors had recommended contracts valued at millions of dollars to family members and political affiliates. Minister McKenzie said he was concerned that the municipal body had still not acted on any of the recommendations contained in those OCG reports.
There must be checks and balances put in place. You must be accountable to somebody. And you are accountable to me and the Ministry of Local Government.
The Mayor and Secretary Manager of the Hanover Parish Council were instructed to give uncompromising support to the team from the ministry throughout their investigation, which is expected to last for 3 weeks. The team will also be probing the issue of council-owned lands being sold to persons without approval from the ministry. And finally, the relocation of the Ministry of Justice to premises at 61 Constant Spring Road should be completed within weeks. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck says all the units and divisions of the ministry will be accommodated at the new property, including those located in downtown Kingston. He says about 90% of the move is completed.
I just believe that by the beginning of June, most of them, or all the ministry, will be there.
The Oxford Road offices of the Justice Ministry were ordered closed earlier this year due to air quality issues. And that's it for GIS News today. I'm Tamara McHale. Thanks for watching.
This is the Aedes aegypti mosquito that spreads the Zika, chikungunya, and dengue viruses. Protect yourself from the bite of this mosquito. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Nutritious food, succulent dishes, superior workmanship, and excellent service. Jamaica is on the go. Let's grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Let's harness the indomitable spirit of our most valued resource, our people. Let's support our local businesses. After all, buying Jamaican means building Jamaica.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness had a packed schedule this past week, from unveiling a raft of new policies and measures to touring the operations of the Jamaica Defense Force. Get the details next.
In Parliament last Tuesday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced a raft of new measures aimed at giving more Jamaicans access to housing through the National Housing Trust, the NHT.
It's not to be a commercial operation. It is to make sure that the workers of the country have access to housing.
And so, come July 1, NHT contributors who earn $12,000 or less weekly will start to benefit from no interest rate mortgage loans. Before, only persons who earned $7,500 or less weekly were able to access this benefit. NHT contributors who take home between $12,000 at $1 and $20,000 per week will now pay a 2% interest rate on their mortgage. In addition, those who take home between that amount and $30,000 per week will now pay 4% interest rate on their loans. Contributors making over $30,000 will continue to pay the 6% interest rate. Public sector workers, the disabled and senior citizens will also continue to benefit from the additional 1% and 2% discount on their interest rates, respectively. Meanwhile, qualified persons seeking NHT home grants can now receive $1.5 million, up from $1.2 million. And contributors can now receive $2 million to purchase serviced lots, up from $1.5 million. There has also been a reduction in the years of eligibility for contributors.
An individual would now access the home grant in the 8th year of contributing to the trust. This will take effect on July 1, 2016. As Prime Minister, I am not going to allow crime, in particular murders, to derail the economic growth and prosperity of the country.
And with that, the Prime Minister revealed to Parliament a myriad of measures and policies to tackle crime and violence. Among them, the fast-tracking of murder trials in the court system, the introduction of mandatory minimum sentences for certain crimes, and the amending of the Bail Act to make some persons charged for murder ineligible for bail. Prime Minister Holness also said 2,000 additional men and women were to be recruited to the police force over the next 3 years. Prime Minister Andrew Holness was also preoccupied with ways to spur economic growth and job creation on the island last week. During his budget presentation, he announced the establishment of an economic policy office to drive economic growth.
This will be a compact team of technically knowledgeable and effective systems managers drawn from the existing managerial level across agencies and departments under the new ministry. They will act as the coordinating nucleus of policy development and implementation, reporting directly to the Prime Minister. They will also act as the anchoring secretariat for the work of the Economic Growth Council.
The Prime Minister also announced that the Jamaica House Fellowship Program would begin accepting applications later this week. The program is aimed at utilizing the island's most promising young minds over a 2-year period. And as part of efforts to increase business facilitation, Prime Minister Holness said government would be developing an electronic business registration system which would allow online business registration. Building applications will also be facilitated online.
The government will soon amend the necessary regulations to make it mandatory for the electronic submission and processing of all building and development applications.
On Thursday, Prime Minister Holness took on his defense portfolio as he toured the facilities of the Jamaica Defense Force. He viewed the JDF's Technical Training Institute, the Twickenham Park Range, and the Jamaican Coast Guard facilities at Port Royal. Following the tour, the Prime Minister said he would be exploring opportunities to tap into the skill sets of the men and women of the Army.
The government intends to spend some time on making sure that the military is integrated in what we're doing. They have capacities that can help us to tackle many of the socio-economic issues, not just limited to crime, but specifically with crime, but also with training.
And at the 49th Victoria Cross dinner at Up Park Camp, the Defence Minister followed through with his intent by inviting talented Army members to serve on boards. Mr. Holness said this week he would be convening the National Security Council and the Defence Board after that.
I've already spoken to the Chief of Defence Staff to say, I need you to give us some of your great minds to sit on the boards with other great minds to start looking at the problems with different lenses.
At Saturday's function, Prime Minister Holness said the Army was the reserve for human capital not only in the defence of the state, but also for economic and social development. And that's how we close Jamaica House Weekly. We return next time with the latest news coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Preparing for CSEC exams? Visit ELJAM's virtual learning environment for free study notes, videos, and quizzes in 11 subjects. www.elearnjavle.org.
We want a productive Jamaica. We are not productive Jamaicans. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity is the way to go for all us Jamaicans. Small business, big business, old and young, we are tell every woman and man. We want growth and prosperity for a better nation with a building plan. So we can build our product and sell our product and put more money in our hand. Our economy can rise to a level and build a better nation. Productivity, to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity, to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity.
Productivity, Pathway to Prosperity. A message brought to you by the Jamaica Productivity Center, a department of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
Welcome to this GIS special discussing the 2016-2017 budget debate. I'm Ian Boyne. We have a special panel, distinguished panel, to discuss issues to do with tax, as well as other issues which came up during the 2016-2017 budget debate. With us is Dennis Chung, CEO of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Alison Peart, Managing Partner and Tax Partner at Ernst & Young, and Everton McFarlane, Chief Economist at the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. We thank you for your company. Ladies, gentlemen, good to have you on the program. The tax package has certainly dominated this budget debate. Most of the discussions have centered on tax, and the significant matter of moving away from direct to indirect taxation has been a major feature of the discussions. I just want to start there by beginning with you, Dennis, saying why this is important, why this move to away from direct taxation to indirect taxation, why this is a good way for the country to go.
Well, let me start by prefacing by saying that the Matalan report of 2005 and the PSWG report by the PSOJ in 2012 actually recommended a move from direct to indirect taxation. So this is something that should have happened a long time ago. So we applaud the move because, you know, what we tend to do many times is look at the tax policy in other countries, developed countries, and we try to implement here, which it doesn't work. We have a tax culture of evasion and avoidance, right? We have a culture where it is a large informal economy, and you know, because of how our institutions are, it's difficult to track what's going on. And TAJ, I think, has done some very good work over the past few years, right? But we still have a long way to go. So what we need to do is, if we were to move towards indirect taxation, which has a much higher compliance rate, you actually spreading the burden more by capturing the people who are not being compliant.
Advantage of
and
that
in terms of the compliance, the ease of tracking indirect taxation, consumption taxes, the fact that, for example, at the port, the taxes at the port, you easily get that, or through GCT, and you're capturing the wider cross-section of society. Those people that, you know, whether it's a cash economy or not, they still have to pay. So we've always thought it was a much fairer tax. It would be much better for government. It would reduce the bureaucracy and make it easier for government. So it's from that point of view that we support an indirect taxation regime.
Alison?
Well, the world is moving that way. One of the issues with moving from a direct tax system to an indirect is the hit on the poor. So as long as you have robust systems to ensure that they are protected and the most vulnerable are protected from an ease of doing business, from an ease of collection and the cost of compliance, because part of making sure that you get the tax revenue in is ensuring that you get it in quickly and cheaply. So the more taxes that are on in the form of indirect taxation, it's really cheaper for the government to collect. So as long as you put the framework in place to ensure that the poor, who are ultimately going to be paying, money that they wouldn't have if it was a direct tax, as long as you make sure that they're covered, the move towards an indirect tax is the way the world is going. I mean, if you look globally, a lot of people are going towards the GST and the VAT. The US is one of the few countries that only has a sales tax. So in terms of where our trading partners are going, it's towards the direction of indirect. The IMF, you heard, spoke about that move. The OECD has put out quite a few papers on, the move towards more of an indirect system. Also, as we have more e-commerce, as we have more interesting types of business, it will make that facilitation in terms of taxation a little easier for the government if you're moving more towards an indirect taxation.
Everton, you're the man from the ministry. You're the man we should credit or blame.
I can't leave it.
But you're the ministry. But yeah, this move from direct taxation, move away from more taxing income to taxing consumption.
Yes.
The IMF has hailed this as bold and essential. Give us a justification of this from the government's point of view.
Well, my fellow partners here today have already stressed some important points. Dennis has stressed the greater administrative efficiency of indirect taxes, primarily because of the concentration of collection points and the way that increases the ease of collecting the taxes. Alison has stressed the issue of ensuring that there is an adequate safety net that is there to protect those who are most vulnerable on the consumption side. But I just want to emphasize, in addition to those, perhaps 2 points. One is that with the shift, there is expected to be, and there is, greater incentives for work, from the point of view that in general, and this is one of the aims of the reform, certainly for most workers, there is going to be a reduction in the average tax burden, in the average tax rates, as you move along the income stream, the income distribution for most workers, which allows them to spend more. That, by doing so, you introduce less distortion because people can control their consumption decisions as opposed to you taxing it as they earn it, right? And so even by how you shift around your consumption, there's a possibility for you to adjust to the taxes in a less distortionary way than if I took the taxes at the point of income. Secondly, there is also, if you were to do the analysis, a reduction in what we call marginal tax rates, especially for lower and middle income earners because of the increase in the threshold. And what that really means is that each additional dollar that you earn is taxless. And so that creates a greater incentive for work. So apart from the administrative gains, there is also
benefits to the individual.
There's benefits that are, we economists call it a reduction in the distortion, increase in the incentives to work, and that provides over the medium to long term a better foundation for growth. But Alison's point about the social safety net is important from the perspective that there will be persons who would not have benefited from the threshold increase, for instance, right, but would still be faced in terms of the increased cost of certain goods and services arising from the shift to indirect taxation. And it is important that the government maintains its commitment to addressing the needs of those persons, either through short-term social assistance, but more medium-term efforts to improve their capacity to earn and to enter the labor force, whether through training, whether through support at individual and community level entrepreneurship, and so on. The second aspect that's important, and it may go to your question also about the reticence in terms of accepting taxes, and it is part of it, I believe, is that there is a contract that the government has with its people. It says, I am going to extract from you resources with which I use to provide goods and services. And if the quality of those public services and if its distribution across the population is not perceived as being fair, then you're going to have resistance on the tax side. And I believe part of what we have to do going forward, and we see this in terms of the government's intention to do public sector reform, is to increase that sense of justice on the expenditure side. Are we spending the money with integrity in terms of reduction of corruption? Are we spending it efficiently in terms of ensuring that we reduce cost overruns on projects, and are we spending it rationally? The choices that we make about public investment decisions, for instance, must reflect the appropriate complementarity of those projects with private investment, the choices. And if we get those choices right, I think over time the public will begin to more and more appreciate the extent to which their tax dollar is being used for their benefit. So part of the disconnect is that we haven't reached the point as a country where we are confident that we have our expenditure management is consistent with people's expectations about how we use their tax dollars.
You've been watching a GIS special discussing the 2016-2017 budget debate, discussing issues surrounding that. With us have been Dennis Chung, CEO of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Alison Peart, Managing Partner and Tax Partner at Ernst & Young, and Everton McFarlane, Chief Economist at the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. I'm Ian Boyne. Thank you for your company. Until next time, have a good evening.
That's the old way of doing things. Introducing Government of Jamaica Electronic Procurement, a speedy, transparent and accessible online method used to bid for government contracts. Contact the Ministry of Finance and Planning for more information.
And that's how we close today's edition of Jamaica Magazine. Be sure to join us tomorrow around about this time for more of the positive developments here in Jamaica land we love. We are always online. There's our website, YouTube, and Facebook pages. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and other social media platforms. On behalf of the entire team here at the JIS, I'm Audrey Williams. Thank you for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.